Welcome to the Mindfulness Academy Podcast. I'm your host, Amy Morgan, and on today's show, we have Emily Laugle. Hi, Emily.
Hello, Amy. How are you?
I'm great, and you?
I am happy and delighted to be here with you today, sharing the space.
I like that response. You don't hear that very often. How are you? I'm happy. I like that. I want to introduce you to our listeners. Emily is the owner of Indy North Wellness, which is formerly known as Indy North Massage. She is board certified and a licensed massage therapist and national board certified health and wellness coach. She has been practicing since 2010. She believes in bio-individuality, where every body is different and therefore uses a personalized approach for each individual to meet the client's specific needs. She is also a BEST, B-E-S-T, and spiritual BEST practitioner and a certified facilitator of the energy codes based on the work of Dr. Sue Morter. She helps men and women look for relaxation in those working to overcome serious injuries, chronic stress, anxiety, and emotional traumas. Emily specializes in a variety of bodywork modalities, coaching strategies, energy work, aromatherapy, and nutrition. She is committed to providing a new direction for healing chronic conditions and restoring harmony to the body. Isn't that lovely? I appreciate your
so
work.
fun. It just hearing that just softens my body. You know, when we talk about harmony and presence and sharing space.
It is lovely. You don't hear that very often in a bio either. Restoring harmony to the body. I love that, how giving that is. I always like to start the podcast with a little bit about how we know each other. Didn't just pick up a random cold call. We've known each other here for a little while and I personally have been enjoying getting to know you. I believe the first time we met was through our networking group. I'm not sure our paths had crossed before that, but I'm glad they have crossed now. And we have some wonderful health and wellness practitioners in that group, which I feel very honored to know. I'm wondering if you would tell us a little bit about yourself. So let's roll things back just a little bit. Tell us a little bit about where you grew up and a bit about some high-level work, your work and educational background.
Yeah, of course. So I grew up here in Indianapolis, Indiana, on the southwest side of town, and now residing on the northwest side of town of Indy, still here. I grew up in a family of 7, so I'm one of 5 girls, all sisters. And we grew up in a very holistic family. It was 1987. My mom was picking up one of my younger sisters, hurt her back. And my dad grew up with chiropractic in his family, and he was like telling my mom how she needed to go see a chiropractor. And he knew that she preferred a female doctor over a male doctor. And he opened up the good old classic yellow pages and found Morter Chiropractic. And so Dr. Sue had just opened her practice that summer of 87. And it was later in the fall, winter of 87 when my mom first went to go see Dr. Sue. And then we as a family started going there as well. And so that was our main form of healthcare growing up, and believing and knowing that the body has the capacity to heal itself because it's doing it all the time, as long as we provide the right environment for it to work less hard, if we can say that. So, you know, growing up in that type of family. And also, I remember growing up working on my sisters, and I could feel in my body where it was I needed to work on them. At the time, I didn't know any of that. It wasn't until my later adult years that, you know, the puzzle pieces kind of all start to click. When we get into our 30s, and especially like in our 40s, when people kind of start calling it midlife crisis, but I like to call it like maybe midlife opening. And we're actually receiving the messages quicker now. And I think we're experiencing those midlife crises a lot sooner, which I don't want to call it a crisis. It's like an awakening. We are waking up to like, oh my gosh, like really, who am I? Because we have grown up, you know, under our families' programs and conditions and whatever society was happening at the time, their programs and conditions. So we accumulate this, and then we get to 30s and we start questioning everything. And so that's like our big reveal and aha moments when we start waking up. So yeah, at the time when I was younger, I didn't really realize all this, how energy had worked, and ended up going off to school initially for interior design. Later found out that I was more into interior decorating and not design. Didn't really have that architecture type brain, but it was more decorating. And I was like, well, I don't really want a career in decorating. So I went for exercise science. Later found out that's not necessarily my path. Took an aptitudes test, which led me to parks and recreation. So I was looking for degrees under that umbrella, which then led me to where I ended up receiving my undergrad from IUPUI with tourism, convention, event management. And so I decided to transfer from Ball State to IUPUI downtown Indianapolis, which I think it's renamed now. I don't know what the new name is. And just because being in Indianapolis, I was then immediately immersed into the industry and surrounded by it. Then where I was working for the Hyatt Regency Hotel and had plans to move into management with that to be able to travel, because I have travel in my blood. I've been wanting to move and leave ever since I was a very young girl. I remember us growing up. There's a part of time we lived in the Speedway, Indiana, by the racetrack. My dad was a huge race fan, and we'd have race parties. And one of the parties, one of the family friends was like, Emily, you can come live with me. And I had went upstairs and packed 3 brown grocery bags, which was Cub Foods at the time, if we remember Cub Foods, on the west side of Indy. And I brought all my bags down and said, I'm ready to go. And they're like, oh, I'm just joking. So like, I've been ready to like move and groove and travel since I was at a young age. My last semester of undergrad, though, I did end up getting pregnant with my son, Dace, who is now 16, and had this huge gut feeling that I had to stay here in Indy to raise him. And I know a lot of parents, especially women, struggle and put a lot of ourselves on the back burner, or just people in general. But when we have this gut feeling to follow nature's path, God's path, universal path, it's just amazing how it just opens up so much for us. And sometimes it can feel like we're saying no to ourselves. And at the same time, we're saying yes to something way bigger than we ever imagined. So my initial dreams and goals were to travel around the world and work at different Hyatts around the world. However, I did choose to stay here, and I just had to raise my son here. And so that led me down a different path, ended up getting out of the hotel industry and ended up working for the state downtown at the government center. I started there in 2009. So being a single parent, I needed and wanted something that had better flexibility, better hours, better benefits, better pay. And so that's what led me down that road. After about a year of being there, I was like, this is dreadful. Not my type of environment. But I ended up lasting 5 years there, and it all served. And in 2010 is when I had my big awakening, big aha moment. It was my first transcendental experience. I was on a lunch break, put my headphones in, listening to classical music. Like, I'm just going to go outside and walk and breathe, and practicing some of the breathing techniques that Dr. Sue has taught me and teaches a lot of people globally. And I remember being on West Washington Street, downtown Indy, right in the mid smack of the Capitol building. And all of a sudden, I was just this ray of white light connected with eternal universe. And I could still see all the people. Again, it was a lunch hour, so it was very busy. The sidewalks were very busy with people. Cars were, rushing by as fast as they could on downtown city streets. But that was like all a blur. Like, it all existed, but it like wasn't like real or there. And then I just remember coming back into my body, and I was like, what was that? And I don't know how long I was there, but it happened like in an instant. And also in 2010 is when a friend of mine had invited me to go to a complimentary chiropractic consultation where they had different stations set up and doing like evaluations. And at the very end, you get a free 15-minute massage. And it was in that massage that when I was receiving, it just felt different. I was like, this is not supposed to feel this way. And so that's when I received the message that I needed to go to massage school. Like it was literally a voice says, Emily, you need to go to massage school. And again, following my intuition, which I have been intentionally practicing since my early 20s. It's not easy to follow those gut instincts, that yet they are always right. And I'm always glad I did. So a lot of times we can catch ourselves saying like, oh, I knew it. I knew I should have went with my gut instinct, or I knew that was going to happen. And so that's kind of giving an idea of what a gut instinct is and when we choose to follow it and when we don't choose to follow it. And so that day I called my mom and told her I need to go to massage school. And she was like, all right. In that fall of 2010, I was enrolled. And then in that time, I did a lot of contract work. So I was still working for the state, had my full-time job, attended school on the weekends. And then like I said, did a lot of contract work, corporate gigs, working backstage and music artist, dressing rooms, a lot of that stuff. And then in 2014 is when I went on a month's stress leave, and all I found myself doing was my massage work. And that's when I knew that it was time for me to step into this full time. And at the time I attempted to start my own business, like to open up my own like private location. But my son was still young and still required a lot of my attention. And the marketing and the networking, the advertising is so easy to get wrapped up in, and it does acquire a lot of time. So then I ended up getting a job at Lifetime Fitness there in Castleton, and that served greatly. And just getting the experience and working with my ideal clientele who are already health and wellness minded. So navigating and choosing, there's a lot of different places and spaces to work with massage. And I knew the spa industry was not my avenue. So I wanted to work with people more on a therapeutic, holistic level and using this technique as a form of medicine. And those relaxation spas serve, and they're great. I just knew I had a different come from and a different view with the body work. I ended up working there after 2 years of working there. I went down to part-time and did start my private practice up. And then that was 2016. And the last Wednesday of September of 2016 is when I woke up that morning, received the message saying, put in your 2 weeks notice. And I'm just kind of like, what? No way. And I get like, and it's nerve wracking. It's like, oh my God, I got to send my boss. I got to tell my boss I'm quitting. And how do I do this? And yeah, I just sat down and wrote it. And 2 weeks later, October 15th, I was completely out on my own. And I've been running my private practice ever since. And outside of my private practice, also like holding workshops and teaching people, these tools and techniques to help us, get back into our bodies and being able to utilize that and be able to heal ourselves through all that.
And it sounds like with this path that you've been on, I mean, the massage therapy and the coaching is really, it is your thing. There have been several steps that have led to it, but you've been here for well over a decade.
Yeah.
I mean, it's been a transition into your own practice, but even before that. So that speaks volumes to finding where you're meant to be. And so I appreciate hearing about that path, because sometimes we can feel like, okay, is this the right thing? And the gut says no. So how do you kind of adapt and still have faith that you will know when you're supposed to know?
Yeah.
And
And
will
sometimes
align.
And sometimes the hard part is like sitting and waiting. So when we find ourselves efforting, that's when we know that's not the right time, or if we're trying to force something to happen. And, another thing I like to assess all that with, does it light you up or does it tighten you up? And so, and it does come down to fine tuning to be able to decipher, like when you get a gut instinct to like do something and then the nerves kick in, it's like, which is which? And it's just like, okay. It's kind of going back to like, which one came first, the gut instinct, and knowing that we have this universal connection with source. And when we hear that voice, when it serves our greater good, that's when we know. It's just like any other muscle, like going to the gym and exercising. It does take practice of exercising that energetic muscle and that intuition.
I think that intuition is going to be a common thread of our conversation today, and we can get into that a little bit more as the conversation flows. I love that. Does it light you up or tighten you up? Because one thing that I have worked on for the last several years is dropping into my body. When there's a decision to make and I feel indecisive, perhaps there are two options for me that I see as clear options, and I will hold one of them in my mind and notice how my body responds. And then I'll hold the other in my mind, notice how my body responds. And the body knows. That's the crazy thing is, so I notice when it's the wrong thing, my body, my throat will tighten. I might get some butterflies.
Yeah.
Those are, I would say, probably the top two that kind of manifest during something that's not the right choice for me. However, when it is right, I do almost feel this light. It's like honestly like a lightening of the load. So kind of a different use of the word, where it's like, oh, I feel an ease that comes over me.
Yes. Oh, I just got truth bumps. Our bodies are literally antennas, even on all of our cells. Like we have these receptor sites that are antennas that we're constantly feeling. And our hair is an extension of that, just like cat whiskers, how they sense and feel. And so when our hair stands up on our arms, which I still having truth bumps because this kind of stuff lights me up. So we can call it truth bumps as a way. It's kind of like, excited, like, yes. Our hairs will stand up. We'll get those goosebumps or truth bumps. So it's something that ends up resonating with us, with our higher self.
I love that. And I love the antennas. We'll probably talk about antennas a little bit more too as we go on. Let's talk a little bit more about how you have transitioned a bit. I know that massage therapy has been a big part of your life. However, you have launched a more formal coaching practice. And it sounds like throughout the whole time you've been doing massage therapy, you've also been doing some coaching. Let's be honest, that's just how you're built. I know that you are a sharer of information and wisdom. And so I'm curious, if you could tell me more about that. What is this coaching business and how is it different than what you've been doing in the past?
Yeah. And I don't think there's any separation. And so hearing, you say you've been doing coaching, and it's so true. I have been doing coaching before I launched, we'll say, a coaching practice. And as I'm getting more refined in it, it's the both, and they are all together. And so where I'm at with my practice, instead of it being called like Indy North Massage formally, and now into Indy North Wellness, because it is a collective of what I do. And I'm a visionary. Like I can see, and if anyone has ever done human design before, I am a projector. So I am a seer, and I am just simply here to share, and I can project and see things like when I work with people. And I don't tell them, I just share. And I also ask powerful questions for them to kind of get in tune with their own circuitry as well. And I've always had a desire to travel, teach, and coach. And so when shutdown happened, obviously that kind of sent me in a spiral and I couldn't work. And it's like, if I can ever go back to work and put my hands on people, what can I do? Like, how can I still share this message that I can still work with people in that way? And so I started a YouTube channel and just started talking and sharing about this work to be able to continue to support my clients in my community of how to regulate our nervous systems and times of high stress. And because we are in a society where we are very sympathetic dominant, where we're just completely like on edge and so out of our bodies that we're like, the chest breathing versus the belly breathing. And we have gotten to a place where we have even forgotten that we have forgot, and helping people to bring it back to the basics. And there's so much flashy new things all the time, and we're inspired by that and it grabs our attention and we want all that. But what would it be like just to really like simplify things, like keep it so simple? And I know we are complex beings, yet when we can just simplify things and keep it easy, our nervous system appreciates that.
That's a good word. Tell me a little bit about the common issues that folks come to you with, your clients.
Yeah, it's always interesting what they come in for, because we usually have an initial symptom that we're experiencing that we can't quite figure out. And my beliefs and philosophies are, yes, we do have this physical ailment, and at the same time, it existed in our energetic field before it landed in our physical form. And so there's always some sort of emotion attached to that. So I have to meet people where they are in their physical complaints, like, oh, I have this headache or I have this backache. And lately I've been getting a lot of clients with TMJ dysfunction. And a lot of people complain about having TMJ. It's like, well, that's not the quite proper term to say, because we all have TMJ. It's an anatomical location and it's a joint. So TMJ dysfunction, and that our jaw area has a lot to do with communication, anger, resentment, not speaking words that we wanted to speak. And it's not necessarily speaking in a way of attacking. It's learning how to get back into the body and like speaking from a place of love and sharing that way. And when I did go get my coaching training, so like I said, I've always been coaching and doing those type of things, yet I wanted to get trained how to properly, not I won't say properly or the right way. I wanted further education on coaching. And so what that ended up teaching me a lot is like shadow work and how I was projecting onto people versus just sitting back and becoming a very, very refined, active listener and learning how to ask powerful questions. So then therefore it can evoke that wisdom within that other person. Whereas me being such a seer and a knower, people don't want to be told what to do, or like, do this and then you'll be better. And it's like, that's not necessarily true for that individual person. So being able to see each individual as their own individual self and empowering them to be able to make the decisions for them that lines up with their higher self and their greater good.
I like that. And I enjoy thinking about how, okay, maybe it's my lower back is hurting right now. Well, maybe you physically actually have done something that's, gotten it a little out of whack, but there also could be a component of, kind of blocking. I think I've heard that before, kind of in a physical therapy sense,
Yeah.
where you're holding a lot of tension in a certain area, which could be in the jaw as well. But thinking through that and exploring, I would be interested in some of those questions to kind of how you get there. I'm sure you do. That just feels, it's probably very
Yeah.
revelatory.
Because we are physical, chemical, and emotional beings. So the physical aspect, so for example, like doing a certain workout and all of a sudden a muscle spasmed or a vertebrae got out of alignment. Yeah, that's the physical component of that. Yet if it keeps repeating itself chronically, there's might be some more underlying work we need to do and kind of like, hey, kind of maybe we need to look in the mirror here. Like what's going on? What are some things that we can change and show up as a better version of ourselves? And a lot of times when people come in, they've already tried all the things. And they're like, I came across your website and I just feel like you really could help. You have, on the energetic level and just the trainings that I've received. And so that's what I hear a lot of times, like, I'm just ready to try something different. And the different has been working for them, and just seeing them light up, they're coming in bent over, hunchback, just like in all this pain or emotional pain. And people are just waking up to the something different and the more and the more. And because we're remembering who we really are, because we've been believing the TV for so long. And that, oh, wait a second. I have the power. I have the control. And it's not the power in the way like I'm going to dominate. It's just like this collective, like, yes. And it's like this energetic blanket of, I am that essence. I am that power. I am that olive branch off the olive tree of that true essence of everything of who I am. And we all are that.
Sometimes we just need reminded.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's very true. I'm curious what role that mindfulness plays in your work with clients.
It's all of it. And earlier you were mentioning how you're paying attention to how your body feels. And like I was sharing how we are pretty much antennas. So 80% of our information is coming from our body and 20% from our brain. Yet we think our brain is in charge and doing the work, and it's actually our body. Our mind is just here to be a servant. We only have 10% access to our brain. If we had more, I don't think we would necessarily exist in physical form. I know there was a movie out that like came out in 2014. I forget what it was called, but it was just like, if we had total access to all of our human consciousness, we wouldn't exist in physical form. So being appreciative that we're compressed in this and only have 10% access, we really have to rely on our energetic body, because that's where all the answers reside. And so how mindfulness shows up is that we are that, and helping people to get back into their bodies. And it's not just in the moments when we go to yoga or go get a massage or go get a facial, or, it's not only like they say in yoga, it's not on the mat where yoga happens. It's in your everyday walking life. It's in your everyday experiences. So constantly being mindful or belly full, because that's where our gut wisdom is. So making sure our radio, we'll call ourselves a radio since we, have antennas coming off of us everywhere, making sure our radio is, tuned in. And how do we tune that in? It could meditation, journaling, going for a walk. What are things that help you get back into your alignment? What are things that help regulate your nervous system so you feel calm and safe and back in your body and are able to handle difficult situations?
Makes a lot of sense. I'm curious how you would define mindfulness in layman's terms.
Being full in the mind, being in the body. That's where our mind and our wisdom resides. And our ego, or I like to call it our protective personality, is there to be a servant of the mind. And we initially come from living from that intuitive space. Just like a lot of animals are very intuitive, and children, when we're born, we are that until about the age of 7. And as long as it is fostered by the parents, we will continue that growth in that area. Or some people forget that, and maybe later in their adult years come back to that. And our mindfulness is just our true essence of who we are. And a lot of, like I said, now people are starting to wake back up to that. We have never lost it. We have just maybe have gotten kind of far away from it. And so that kind of like to picture it as like a candle, like a white stick candle that's lit. And how bright is it or how dim is it? And I don't think the flame ever goes out. There are times when we can feel like that flame does go out, but there's always ways to reconnect back with that mindfulness, and that's connecting with our true essence of who we are.
Tell me about your path to mindfulness. It sounds very interwoven, but I think it could be helpful to understand the path, including maybe some of the different modalities and where it has led you.
My path to mindfulness, I think my biggest one is following my intuition and my gut. And
Which
really
started
being
back in your 20s, right? I mean, so it's been a
right.
while.
Yeah, and then taking a lot of Dr. Sue's workshops and classes to be able to, hone that skill and hone in on that intuitive muscle, and knowing that we are this energetic being. I mean, it takes a belief that we are energy. We just are. If our heart stops, they're putting the pads on, sending electrical shock waves, and electricity is energy. So this energetic being able to, experience this physical form. And knowing that this kind of stuff lights me up and it inspires me, and there's so much truth to it, and science has to catch up, and it is catching up to be able to explain all these different energies and frequencies, and because the brain, the protective personality, wants to comprehend and understand. And if we can get into that trusting state and that faith state, knowing that it's all good, and we continue to get to practice the all good. And my biggest one is my intuition and that gift, and continuing to exercise that and connect and access to resources that help me to get better at that understanding.
I'm curious what some of these routines might be. Potentially, a lot of folks will talk about morning routines, but even just like I've been challenged by my mindfulness teacher to develop not only the morning routine, but even an evening routine and even a threshold routine. So when I come home and I'm greeting my children and transitioning from work life to home life, and
Yeah.
kind of those, I mean, some write about those as sacred thresholds. You're kind of going back and forth between spaces and taking a moment even. I'm exploring what that might look like.
Yeah, I think I want to start at the transition from work to home, because I think that's a big one for us parents. And, sometimes the drive home isn't enough time to transition. You walk through that door and like, and it's like, so I have learned what mine is. So I know I at least need 10 to 15 minutes to decompress when I come home. And what I'll either go for a walk if I haven't already got my walk in, or go for a walk even if I've got my morning walk in. But an exercise I like to do, and it's so simple, is lying on the floor. It's this exercise called legs up the walls, where you lie on the floor and put your legs up against the wall, 90-degree angle. And that really helps to realign the spine and the pelvis. And then also helps helps with digestion as well. And I just lay there and I just like feel my body and I just breathe. And I become aware of the areas of tension and just become curious. I might put some music on. I listen to a lot of frequency and or binaural beats type of music, because we're just frequency, vibration, and light. And so that also helps me get into my alignment when I hear the music and those frequencies, and having a really good speaker that can make it boom through your body. So that is my, transition from work to home. simple exercise routine. In the morning, I do like to meditate. I have the app called Insight. I also have some meditations downloaded from Dr. Sue Morter, or I might play a certain frequency where I'm feeling I might need a little bit more support, like anxiety or stress. And so they'll have the frequencies that help to lower your stress levels and feel more aligned. I'll also sometimes might journal. Journal can be simple as writing 3 things I'm grateful for. So practicing the gratitude. And when we do that consistently, it's just amazing how life just somehow becomes easier. We think it has to be so difficult. Another writing exercise I like to do is called morning pages, where you set a timer for 10 to 20 minutes, have 3 sheets of paper, and you just fill that paper up. And anytime I do that exercise, it's incredible what comes up. I have a lot of things on the docket that came out that I need to now put in physical form, like workshops that I have. I also have a meditation that came through that exercise. So I need to get that recorded. And it's just the downloads I have that they come through so quick, than trying to get it physically to create the workshop or the meditation. That's where it's like, it's so much. So that's my morning routine is meditation. Journaling's not all the time in the morning, and then getting some sort of movement. And so whether that's walking or going to the gym and lifting or yoga. And I'm more on the gentle side when it comes to exercise. That's just what my body likes. I'm a little bit more of a sensitive soul, so I don't like the aggressive type stuff. I grew up in sports. I grew up in the gym and lifting and power clean and hang cleans and max outs, and that was all fun and good. And now I'm just a little softer on myself.
That makes sense. I'm curious if you've read The Artist's Way with the 3 pages. That reminds me of something that it's a book and kind of a journaling.
Yeah, it's her work. Yeah.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
It's one of the most transformative books and programs, kind of self-led programs that I've ever been through. Very gratifying and eye-opening. And yes, those 3 pages are pure magic.
Yeah.
Your brain, I feel like there has to be something about the brain when you wake up. It's just, it's so raw, pure, and what comes out just feels so much more of my pure essence. I love what comes out.
Yeah.
And that's typically the time when I will journal too. I've been focused more on meditation and some yoga as well. In the last probably 6 months, my practice has been more focused on that. But I do miss the writing. So I have to pick that back up. I'm curious though, I wanted to put a pin in something to come back to, and it was around the frequencies. Tell us more about where one would find that, if those are things that are available is that in the Insight app, or do you use another service to find those frequencies that you listen to if you might have anxiety or other?
Well, you can simply Google search, what is the frequency hertz of anxiety, stress. If we want to use some of those backside of the model type words, front side of the model type words might be love, joy, laughter, regardless of which side of the words that you choose. We'll say positive or negative, front side, back side, however best resonates. It'll still bring you to the more positive front side messaging. So like one I was listening to today to help me, and it just felt so good in my body, was the 852 hertz, and it's align with your higher self. So like alignment, when I want to get into alignment. And I think the love frequency is 486. Don't quote me on that. I just recommend getting online and searching, the love frequency, or binaural beats for stress relief. And just feeling those different vibrations helps. So there's a lot of science out there, and even, degrees that people can get into music therapy and sound healing. And at our office where we work, we have a sound table that has transducers under it and the headphones that you put on. So you have the auditory and the physical immersion into a soundtrack. That we have several different soundtracks that can be played, whether you're needing a deep release, chakra alignment. We even have one for weight loss, that then you just lay on the table and you just feel those vibrations and you hear them as well. So I know there's some YouTube channels where they'll have sand on a table and they'll play different frequencies, and then that table will vibrate, and then the sand will move into, like, different formations and things like that. Or if you've done the rice experiment, where you have a batch of rice, then you split it into 2 bowls. One bowl, you write all the positive affirmations on. The other bowl, you write a bunch of negative affirmations on, or negative words. Which one goes rotten quicker? So it's just the power of, anything that we're vibrating or emitting. And we think we can think our way through to get us back into our body. It doesn't work that way. Again, because then you're efforting. Well, I'm thinking positive thoughts. Why isn't it working? It's because, well, what are you doing body-wise? And what is your environment like? What are you doing to serve your higher good? What is your mindfulness practice? What is your self-care practice? What are things that you're doing to get back into that alignment, the true essence of who you are? And something as simple as our sound table service at our office is so profound. People come out looking like their true essence self. I can't explain it. It's just like they go in, kind of looking all like kind of like muddled, and then they come out, they're just like, whoa.
That's so fascinating.
Yeah.
I'm curious about the amount of time that folks would spend in your office with the auditory, the hertz and the frequencies, versus at home. Like, if there's kind of a recommended length of time to listen.
So, the service at our office, there's anywhere from a 30-minute soundtrack to 60-minute soundtracks. And I wouldn't give like a prescriptive amount of time. Because, in the mornings, also part of my morning routine is listening to spiritual leaders or inspirational videos or podcasts that are around business or health and wellness. So that's part of my getting ready routine. Or like this morning, it was putting on a frequency hertz that just resonated better for me, because sometimes music or hearing people talk is too overstimulating for my body. And so, but I still want and need something. And so that's when some of those then binaural beats and sounds and frequencies so my body can just like regulate itself and get into alignment and, prepare for things like this. And, starting in the morning, and you can listen into the car and as often as you want until you're ready for something different.
That's fascinating. I've never done that before that I'm aware of.
Well, that also makes me think of my high school science project, where we had 3 plants. They were all the same type of plants, but they had 3 plants. And we had to have a different genre of music for each plant. I know I had rock, alternative, I had classical, alternative rock, and then hip hop. Which one do you think thrived the most?
I have no idea.
The classical music one.
Okay, because it was calm.
Yeah,
Felt
and just
safe.
the vibration of that music and the frequency of the music, where a lot of the rock and alternative or like heavy metal, I think it was heavy metal, just how it just like, does it tighten you up or lighten you up? You know what I mean? So the classical one thrived the most. The hip hop one was second, and then the rock like the heavy metal one. I can't
For
do
our
heavy
listeners,
metal.
there was a thumbs down
Yeah.
and 2 thumbs down on that one. The plants have spoken.
The plants have spoken. And we're plants too. Like we need, water and nutrients and minerals to thrive, and sunlight.
Which we are not getting very much of right this moment in Indiana.
Yeah. So again, it goes back to paying attention to what lightens you up or tightens you up. And there might be some people where heavy metal lightens them up. I don't know, but not me. And so it's getting into listening to those frequencies, that lighten you up.
I understand that you have a lot of modalities that you practice on your own, which is very inspiring. And I'm glad that you have shared that with us. I appreciate that very much, Emily. I'm curious what might be a favorite mindfulness or mindset practice that you do with clients. And if you would like to lead us in that or perhaps something else, just give us a little sneak peek of what happens.
I would say breathing is the biggest tool. As humans, we have forgotten how to properly breathe. We do a lot of chest breathing. So when I ask clients to take in a big, deep belly breath, no oxygen gets into their belly. It's all in their chest. And if we're only breathing in our chest, what's happening to the bottom lobes of our lungs? They're not getting filled up. And if we're not bringing the breath all the way down into our belly, our organs aren't getting oxygen that it needs. And with that being our wisdom center, we're depleting access to those vital points or to those vital radio stations. If you're familiar with our chakra system, they're pretty much just like radio stations in our body. The basic 7, our root, our sacral center, which is just below our belly button. Above our belly button is our solar plexus, our heart, our throat, our third eye, and then our crown chakra. And so we have, simple belly breathing where you can just simply put your hands on your belly. Because when we physically place the area that we're needing to breathe into, it helps direct the mind down to that because the mind needs direction. And if we have that physical movement, we can bring that down. So I explained the 7 chakra systems, and I want to take us through one of my favorite breathing exercises that I do on a continual basis, just like yoga. It's not just on the mat, it's off the mat too. So like in my walk this morning that I went on, I practiced this central channel breathing. So from the crown of our head to the tip of our spine, we have this central channel. And if we can imagine like this white tube of light down the central channel of our body from the crown of our head to the tip of our spine. And what we want to do is bring our awareness from above our head, like universe. So we inhale from above our head, behind our eyes, down our throat, through our chest and into our belly, and pausing. Then when we exhale, we're going to exhale down our belly, down the tip of our spine, our legs, our feet, into the core of the earth. We're going to reverse that from the core of the earth, inhaling that back up through our feet, our legs, our hips, into our belly, pausing there. And then when we exhale, we're going to exhale up through our chest, our throat, behind our eyes, through the crown of our head. And typically 3 cycles of that. So that was 1 round. And then we can then, again, reverse that through the crown of our head, behind our eyes, our throat, our chest, our belly, pausing. And then when we exhale down through our hips, our legs, our feet, into the core of the earth, where the energy gets recycled and renewed and grounded. Inhaling that groundedness, that tethering up through our feet, our legs, our hips, into our belly, pausing there. And then exhaling up through our chest, our throat, behind our eyes, through the crown of our head into the universe. So there's round 2. And then so we can go around, we're going to go round 3 to complete the whole circuit. So inhaling through the crown of our head, behind our eyes, down our throat, our chest, into our belly, pausing. Exhaling then down through the hips, the legs, the knees, the ankles, the feet, the toes, into the core of the earth. Inhaling back in through the core of the earth, through the feet, the shins, the knees, the thighs, the hips, into the belly. And then exhaling up through the chest, the throat, behind the eyes, into the crown of the head, into the universe. And, feeling and knowing that we are connected from the universe to the core of our head. So anytime that we need to plug back in, that is a really good breathing exercise that we can simply do to feel tethered and plugged in and connected to all the sources that we have to help us move through life.
Thank you for sharing that with us. And what did you call that breathing exercise?
Central channel breathing, or CCB as the acronym, central channel breathing.
It is always amazing to me how 1, 2, 3 minutes of practice can take me from
Yeah.
to calm, calm, calm. And I was pretty calm to begin with through this conversation, but that, ooh, thank you for that. That felt
And we
nice.
can even break that breath down even further. So when I'm working with my clients and my practice, say there's a right lower back, so right hip, lower back issue. And if I'm needing to do a myofascial release where I do like this gentle leg pull hold. So what I'll have them do then is instead of doing the central channel, it'll still be the central channel breathing, but we're just going to segment it to the right side. So they're going to inhale, through the crown of the head, the belly, or the throat, the chest, the belly. Then I'm going to have them, instead of pausing the belly, bring that breath down to the right hip, pause in that right hip, low back area, then exhale down through that right leg into the core of the earth, and then just reverse the cycle, breathing into that right hip, low back area, and then exhaling up through, the belly, the chest, the throat, behind the eyes, into the core of the earth. Same thing that we can do with the arms and the shoulders, lots of shoulder issues where we can start segmenting that breath work. And then always, you can always start and complete with a central channel, and then do maybe a few rounds of, if you're having right shoulder issues or left shoulder issues, and, inhaling into that space of pain and then exhaling up through. So we're bringing awareness, and we're bringing oxygen, and we're bringing blood flow to those areas to help the healing to happen. So, if you do go break an arm, don't come to me to have me do some breathing techniques to fix it. However, the work that I do helps to facilitate the healing process. So, go and get the surgery, get it reset, and do all those things. And there's things that we can do on the energetic level to help the process quicker and faster and more naturally.
That is a great segue into helping our listeners understand who your ideal client is.
Yeah. So people who are interested and, believe in that we are energetic beings and that our bodies do have the capacity to heal itself. And I am just simply a facilitator, kind of like jumper cables, to help turn that back on and remind you. And the majority of clients who do come to see me, I would say, are between 30 to 60, or now it's shifting more to 35 to 65, men and women. I see mostly women, and I do see some men as well, but mostly women, helping them to remind them of their magnificence. And they're looking for something different, because everything they have tried up until this point just isn't working. And the thing is, we're so stuck up in our heads, helping them get back into their bodies and trust themselves again, and to feel safe and that we are okay. I think that's the biggest with, working with women and helping them to remind them of their magnificence. And my sole purpose here on earth is to hold space for people to heal. And I am that safe haven. I'm that safe place for those women to be able to reconnect with that, because there is so much trauma, and even generational trauma, that has been passed on cellularly to us, and just the energetic responsibilities that we have, and how we're so complex and wired differently than men. And being a woman, then I just understand better how to work with women to help them regulate their nervous system, help them get back into their bodies, help teach them how to work with the energy of who they are, and just show up better and be able to excel in every role of their life while loving their life. And it doesn't have to be hard and difficult, and we don't have to push an effort. We can just sit back on that tailbone, sit back on that spine, and just breathe.
Lots of truth bumps you gave me that time, helping women remember their magnificence. That is fantastic. That is fantastic.
Yeah.
I'm curious if you would share a moment anonymously, if you feel comfortable, when someone had tried several things and what it was like for them to go through your program, or just to work with you. Is there kind of this aha moment? I know you talked about the sound. Sounds like you've had people with leg issues. Probably have tried physical therapy and all kinds of things. You know, they're trying things.
Yeah. The one that stands out the most is there was this client, her name was Emily. And she came to me, she found me on Google. So majority of my people who find me are either word of mouth or a lot of people find me on Google. So she found me on a Google search, and she came to me very, very timid. Through the consultation, the things that she was sharing with me, and then she was born with some sort of pelvis abnormality, and at some point she was told that she was going to have her whole pelvis completely reconstructed. Now, I don't remember if she had already had one side done and she was going back in for her second, or if she was going in for her first one. I don't remember that detail. But through the consultation, I find that she shares with me that she doesn't like to be touched, and she doesn't want to take her clothes off. And so I'm just like, being a massage therapist, I'm like, okay, I have no idea how I'm supposed to help her. And at the same time, she obviously came to me because there's obviously something that, people come into our lives for a reason. So I knew. So I said, okay, I'm not sure if what I'm going to do is going to be able to help. If you feel better after this session, pay for it. If you don't pay for it. Like, I just don't want to have anything. And so this client had been through a lot of trauma. So again, an example of helping people feel safe back in their bodies, because we get so tense and blocked off. And so I would just simply, like, I just have to help her feel safe in her body, because she's been so traumatized. And so there were, some energetic work that I did, and I'm not Reiki certified. I don't do Reiki. I'm sure forms of what I do might feel like Reiki, but I get people asking all the time if I do Reiki. I've never taken a class in Reiki, so I don't know anything about it. I know something about it, but I just haven't gone down that path. So I was doing like what I knew to do to hold holds and in different areas, just with touching and feeling safe, because touch is very powerful, and it can feel, if you're traumatized a lot, you can be hypersensitive to it and don't want anything to do with it. So we finished with the session. She felt amazing afterwards, paid for it. I ended up getting a call from her 3 days later, says, I have never walked better in my life than after seeing you. And just the openings and the lightness that people feel, like I just feel much more open. I feel like I can breathe better. I'm standing taller. I'm walking better. So those are the kinds of things I'm hearing. And then a recent one, I'm working with a client on her C-section scar and doing some myofascial work on that. And her working with her Pilates instructor, she's been working on, losing body fat. She's had some body fat goals. And after seeing me a couple times, how that has helped with her body fat percentage going down. And so I just hear these stories that just keep coming up. So when we move those adherences or blockages and interferences that keep our body from being well, it's amazing how much we just soften, and just the stuff melts away. Like, it just melts. So I view fat as a protective layer. It's an energetic protection of safeguarding us from something outside of ourselves that we don't feel safe with. So if we learn to trust and get back into our body, how those blockages, interferences, traumas, kinks in the hoses that then just get released. And then the immune system can turn on and work. So when we can help support the immune system and the body to work easier and smarter and not harder by, supporting our environment that helps that ease, then the body just works so much better and easy, and we're just guided better.
I appreciate that story, how powerful that is, that you were able to help that woman.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's very little touch, even, it sounds like.
Yeah.
Very,
We can
wow.
work in the energy field. So like I have poster here for people that are watching, that we have this energy field, so we can work within these energy fields of us, because we are this eternal essence, this green out here, and then we get to come into this physical form. And these black areas are gunk per se, or things that happen in life, that eternal essence is trying to get in, but it's bouncing off, the gunk that we accumulate in life, whether it's, getting fired from a job, having a divorce, a rape, sexual abuse, car accident, whatever. And then, this first, we have this etheric, where we can feel the heat coming off of our body. And then we have the emotional body, then we have the mental body, then we have this, our eternal self as well. And you can see the chakras and how we receive energy from universe, comes down, bounces off the earth. And then we have, our toric field around us. So this is an image, of our toric field, what true alignment looks like, our divine self. And then this is us humans here on earth getting all wobbly. And you can see how our system can get wobbly and we feel dysregulated. And so the goal and the aim is, alignment, and doing these mindfulness practices, or eating things that serve our greater good. So, eating less, eating less processed foods, making sure we're resting, making sure we're getting gentle movement, exercise in, breathing, and drinking things that nourish our bodies. And our biggest one is our thoughts. And all these things collectively affect our thoughts. And our thoughts end up becoming a belief that we just keep thinking about. That's what beliefs are, just the thought that we keep thinking about. So for wanting to change that, we can't think our way through it. We have to somehow get back into our body and start coming from this position versus top down. We got to start from the bottom up and get back into that body. And we think we can think our way through it, but how has that worked for anybody?
We've talked a lot about getting in touch with our bodies, and we've talked a lot about the value of the mind and the limits of the mind. So I'm curious if we could just take a moment on each of those. If you would share a piece of advice for our listeners to help improve their body.
Connect with some self-care practices that feel good to you. Some people, it's yoga. Some people, it could be going to the gym, lifting weights, could be going for a walk, could be hiking, could be going on a camping trip. So connecting with a form of self-care that works for you. Hydrating, adding water, not only water, but maybe putting some salt and minerals into your water, so then your body's absorbing the hydration. And I'm more about adding in the good versus eliminating the bad, because if we start wanting to take things away, we're going to hang on even more. So start by adding in nourishment. So hydrating, things that nourish your body. What things make you feel nourished? That's where just keeping it simple. Start with simple nourishment, connecting with some self-care practices that make you feel, it could be like taking a bath, soaking in a bath, or just taking a shower, like just getting under that water and feeling that the day just wash off of you, just keep it simple, Sally. We like to overcomplicate things and think it has to be this grandiose, like, I need to go on a retreat to connect with myself. In reality, we are in the retreat of our life. Like we're here in it. And sometimes we do need to go outside of our environment to really feel and connect that. But again, it's off the mat too. Like it's in our daily lives and practicing in that and prioritizing ourself. Because when we prioritize ourself, we create this ripple effect to give other people permission. Just like when we're on an airplane, whose oxygen mask do they tell you to put on first?
Your own.
Yeah, because you can't help anyone else until you help yourself. And no one's coming here to save you. So you're in charge of you. And if you're not showing up for you, who else is? And so we are the way, we are the light, and leading ourselves back home in our bodies.
Bodies. What about so that's the body. What about from a mindset point of view? Do you have a tip that you would give our listeners to improve their mindset to reach their goals? And I've picked up on a number that you've sprinkled throughout, but I'm curious if there's one as we get here towards the end that you might want to leave us with.
It's getting back into our bodies, because we can't think our way to there through our mindsets. If we're wanting to change our mindset, we need to get back into our bodies, because our mind responds to our body. And if the two are dysregulated and they aren't agreeing with each other, then what is it that we're needing to shift, or what is it that we're needing to change? And, mind wise, paying attention to the thoughts that are coming in. And my favorite exercise for that is going to be the morning pages. When I feel my head I know when I need to sit and do morning pages, that writing exercise, because my thoughts are just ruminating and I'm carrying on past days of thoughts that are still just accumulating there. So physically getting it out just through writing, I feel lighter. Again, we can't think our way out of a bad thought, but we can become very present with where we are, and practicing gratitude and just, okay, I'm experiencing this feeling, but I'm okay right now. And just kind of, what's the next best, easiest thought from, if you're having like a bad moment thought, what is the next best, easiest thought? And just softening it and keeping it simple. And again, going back to our breath and breathing.
Yeah. And noticing. I hear a lot of noticing.
Mhm.
I will speak to the mind-body connection and the importance of being in the body. I recently actually have discovered that if I have a very active mind, let's say I'm just going about my day and I know there is a lot stirred up in there, if I might be avoiding my sitting cushion. But what helps in that particular day, if I'm like, oh, I do not want to sit with this, if I spend just a few minutes in yoga, connecting with my body first, and then I go to the mat, it is amazing what that does for my brain. Just calms. I've noticed that. It may not happen every time, but it has been an interesting practice for me to see how my brain could go from racing to much more calm, because I've shown my body it's safe to be calm and it's
Yeah.
safe to move with a lot of awareness. So now we can sit and pay attention to our thoughts with a lot of awareness.
Yes.
I want to give you a chance to talk with us about any offerings that you have and how folks can access perhaps your website or other places where they can learn more.
Yeah, the best place to learn more about me is visiting my website. It is still indynorthmassage.com.
And what
This
will it
is
be?
Indy North Wellness.
Okay.
So that should launch hopefully May of 2024. And right now it's April 2024. So that's coming, and it's in the works in the background. And right now I'm working one-on-one with clients in my massage practice, and workshop coaching wise, I am working with a certified sound healer to implement one of my downloads that came through one of my morning pages exercise for a workshop called Liberate. So it's going through several different tools and practices and sound healing to help women regulate their nervous system. And I'm hoping to launch that this spring, if not maybe first of summer. So that is to come. And then if anyone wants to work with me intensively, private one-on-one in a coaching body work session, that opportunity is available as well. And that's something that's co-creative. That's not really a concrete, we have some structure around it, but what true coaching really is, what a client led, it is a co-creative collaboration of us working together to help you to create your wellness lifestyle. Like, what does wellness look like for you? And through a period of time, we work together for me to help hold you accountable and to, ask those powerful questions to turn on within you as the client, your own wisdom. You are your own health coach, and helping to inspire and hold you accountable for that journey. And as we know, for the brain and for it to all become a habit and part of your life, it takes a minimum of 6 months for that, new behavior to become part of who you are. And a lot of these times we think we can do it on our own, and we can, but usually after a month or two, we fall off the wagon and we kind of go back to our system that we've already like regulated and programmed. Because change is not easy, and having that accountability partner to help you through that change process is so powerful.
Absolutely. I've worked with a number of coaches of a variety of sorts over the years, and it is amazing what happens. So much more than what I could do by myself. So I'm so glad that you're doing that.
It's like we're shining a projector light on you, and it's like we can get stuck in our own way, and having that other person be able to see, and then we don't tell you, we just know the questions to ask to get you to see that, so you experience it on your own cellular level. Then it just becomes the essence of who you are, waking up that essence that already exists within you.
As we wrap up our final moments together, I would like to connect with a brief practice and let us go along our way for this beautiful day.
Yay.
So I would like to walk us through the Glowy Daily Reflection Practice. The acronym is G for grateful, L for lift up, something that might need resources for ourselves or others. O for is observe, what we might notice in our line of sight or our hearing or our body. W is for wholesome intention. And I think I have already heard that during our session. So I'd like to hear that from you. And the last one is Y for you are. So you give yourself a positive affirmation there at the end. So you could say, Emily, you are, and whatever you just want to affirm about yourself. So we'll start with the G for grateful. What's one thing that you're grateful for, Emily?
My friends and family in the community. I have more help and support around me than I can get lost in feeling like I'm all alone and doing it myself, and I'm not. So grateful for all the pillars of support that are around me, and you're one of those people as well. And just looking out and seeing the support that I do have. So being grateful for that.
Well, the feeling is mutual. Thank you for that. What might be something that needs lifted up for yourself or others?
Spirit. And I would say again, like, remembering, because, we do forget. So just my spirit and remembering that I'm eternal and it's all okay and it's all good and we're never done and we can never get it wrong. It may be long, but we're never done. We're constantly evolving. So just reminding, just my spirit essence and that I'm eternal.
That's something you observe.
Nature. So this morning on my walk, I saw 2 bluebirds, 2 hawks, and 2 cardinals. So I haven't looked that up yet, again, because I like to look up. I pay attention to my external environment, and especially nature. And nature is a good reminder of where we are internally in our bodies. If we're not liking what we see outside of us, we need to look in the mirror and do some construction. And so just observing nature is a true affirmation and resonance of where it is I am internally.
What about your wholesome intention? What is that?
Doing God's work, doing Source's work, and just showing up as that, and knowing it's coming through that. It's not me, it's the eternal. And me getting out of the way.
Conduit. I like that. Mm-hmm. And here's your chance to give yourself some self-love that we've been talking about. Emily, you are
amazing, bright, brilliant, and awesome.
Lots of self-love. I love it.
Yes.
Oh my goodness. Emily, thank you for your positivity. Thank you for your time. And all the tips that you've given to us. I love the breathing exercise. I'm definitely going to add that to my tool belt. So thank you so much for that. And so is there anything else you'd like to add before we wrap it up here?
Oh, this has been really good. And again, if your radio station, you're not liking what it's playing, you need to change your dials, and meaning your chakras. Just knowing, remembering we're all energetic beings, we're an antenna, and we are super attractors, and the law of attraction and things like that. So if we're not liking what we're seeing in our external environment, we need to go within and see where the work needs to be done. Where do we need to reconnect with ourselves to be
The
whole?
plants have spoken. That's what I'm going to keep remembering. The plants have spoken.
The plants have spoken. Yeah, of course.
Well, from my heart to yours, may you live with ease. This is your host, Amy Morgan, signing off.